welcome to episode 11.
Hey, this is John Lee Dumas of EO Fire, and you're listening to Who Did That Voice, where we take an in-depth look at voiceovers.
Are you ready to plan your next vacation getaway? Then I recommend using 3D Travel Company. They are more powerful than pixie dust, more fantastic than flu powder, and they never charge a fee. Whether you're booking a Disney or Universal vacation, a relaxing cruise, or a luxury trip overseas, you'll experience concierge-level service unmatched by any agency. From the moment you submit a complimentary quote request or inquiry on their website at www.3dtravelcompany.com, you'll find out what it means to be pampered by the best in the business. That's 3, the letter D, travelcompany.com. And tell them Trenton sent you.
Welcome to Who Did That Voice, the show where we take an in-depth look at voiceover. And now, here's your host, Trenton Larkin.
If you're a G.I. Joe fan, then today's special guest is someone you won't want to miss. He's the voice of Duke from G.I. Joe.
Duke, are you all right?
Yeah, thanks to your sharp shooting, Scarlet. Yo, Joe!
Our special guest has also played Lance, the Blue Lion pilot for Voltron.
Why don't you use your eyes? I don't think you could hit me if I just sit here in midair.
Today's special guest also played part of a dynamic duo, the Wonder Twins.
It's the Trouble Alert. It's time to put our XOR experience to use.
Wonder Twin powers, activate! Shape out an eagle!
Form of water.
Last but not least, he played Quackerjack from Darkwing Duck, the quacky, quirky, evil court jester of villainy and crime.
Anon, we seize the stage to hear perform a play to lift your hearts and make them warm.
Quackerjack, this dressing up in costumes is getting boring.
Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Who Did That Voice? Today on the show, we have Michael Bell joining us. Michael, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Hey, my pleasure, Trenton.
Well, Michael, would you please just give us a brief story of who you are? We always like to get just a little background on who our guest is, and how did you get into acting and specifically voice acting?
Well, I've always studied to be an actor ever since I was a kid, and trained hard and went to the High School of Performing Arts in New York, and then came out to California, and then eventually when I hit my 30s, got my first film, which was really strange, called Damaged Goods. Not that I want anybody to see it. And then started to work quite a bit in television after a period of time, went into the Army, came back, worked some more, and then eventually got into voiceovers because I was on the contract at Universal Studios, and I kept getting the same roles over and over again. And I thought as an actor I really wanted to go for some variety, but I wasn't going to get cast in any roles that went beyond my ability to look a certain way and to play a certain character. So I eventually asked some friends who were very much involved in VO if that was something I should attempt, and they said, absolutely, you do all these dialects and all these characters, give it a shot, gave it a shot, and the rest is my own personal history.
Wow, that's an amazing story, man. I really appreciate you sharing with us. You know, I didn't realize you had served in the military. How long did you actually do that?
I was there for 3.5 years. I went for half a year, then re-upped for another for it because I was just not even worth talking about. It was dumb. I thought I'd go overseas and kill the Nazis, and there were no Nazis. We were fighting. We were in Vietnam, and they said they were going to send me over, and I said, okay, I'm ready to fight for my country. Well, that really wasn't what it was all about, and I didn't know anything. But bottom line was they remanded me to Georgia, which is not unlike going overseas.
Well,
so that rest is history.
Absolutely. Well, Michael, thank you so much for your service to the country. We do, I personally have always had a real big heart spot in my heart for servicemen and women, and what they do for our country is, unbelievably amazing, sacrificing their lives. So
I feel the same way, which is why it's so much fun to have done G.I. Joe, because I meet so many servicemen and servicewomen that say, "Oh my God, you when I do the conventions, you one of the reasons I went." And blah blah. It's really is interesting. Yes, I have great respect for our servicemen and women.
Absolutely. Well, Michael, you kind of touched on it just briefly. You were in G.I. Joe and you played Duke along with countless other characters. What was that experience for you, getting to play with all those other actors at that time frame, and working with Wally Burr, directing that show?
It was really super. I worked with some of the best actors. I used to talk about it because I did a soap opera for a year, and after doing besides video games and animation, somebody says, "Well, what's the difference?" I said, "I'm working with actors that don't care what their hair looks like." And they don't care what they look like at the last moment. They're willing to rehearse, and they work with you, and they're good, and they know their craft. And I defy most of those on-camera actors, at least at the time I was doing this, to do this work. I don't think they were capable of it. They were just, from my point of view, majority of them were only interested in physically how they looked. I know for a fact, having done the soap opera for a year, how hard it was to get anybody to work with me. So when I finally got G.I. Joe, it was so much fun. And Transformers and all the animated shows, because I was working with some really, really super professionals.
Absolutely, Michael. So when you had done G.I. Joe, you had already served in the military at that point, correct?
Yes, I did.
So in that regards, when you were playing that militaristic character or different characters from that show, did it kind of help you have a better perspective of how those characters should be portrayed and acted?
I don't think so. I think I probably, much of that probably came from whatever inner source I had, the writing, which was kind of fun, the aggressive actions, etc., that take place, the screaming, the yelling, etc. I did some of that in boot camp, basic training, I think, with traces going over my head and climbing in the mud. But other than that, I can't think of much. I was no action hero particularly. Listen, I served in Georgia at Fort Gordon. I mean, the only thing heroic about it was fighting the mosquitoes during the summer and the cold winters. Other than that, I mean, I had it pretty cushy, like most of us did, that didn't wind up going overseas.
Absolutely, Michael. Well, I know you also got to work on Voltron back in 1984, and you played both Sven and Lance, who piloted the Blue Lion, and that show has always been one that really I find very fascinating from when I was younger. What was it like working on that show, Voltron?
Voltron was fun because we didn't get a chance to ADR, which is additional dialogue replacement or any kind of dubbing. We had to do it by timing. The producer and director knew exactly what he wanted, Douglas Kofod, and he said, "Okay, Mike, you got this line, and it's going to take you 2.3 seconds." And I went, "Okay." Then I would do it, and he'd go, "That was 2.28. You need to do 2.3, and okay, fine." So we pretty much acted according to the timing of it, and I worked, of course, with some really wonderful actors. And one of the few things that had happened was that because I love to play and cut up and joke and fool around, and I had a couple of, Peter Cullen was a real wonderful foil for me. He would just break up. They finally said, "You can't work with Peter." So they made me work by myself after that.
And that was just because you guys had such a good time?
Because I was making everybody laugh, and it's hard for me to take a lot of stuff seriously unless it's really serious material. And of course the Voltron stuff was a lot of action, a lot of energy, and of course it was Japanese originally, and we eventually kind of got a feeling that he ran a little bit of the film just for us to look at. Although we couldn't dub it, we couldn't ADR to it, we just got to get a feeling what was going on. It was not like American animation at all. There's a lot of naked people in there and a lot of kids getting trampled. And they asked me at the time, BJ and myself had the lightest voices. So BJ could do a certain amount of women, So you were only allowed to do a certain amount of roles. You could only do 3 characters. So we had our leads, and then maybe if my leads had 2 leads in the show, then I could do a 3rd voice. And generally, it was a little girl that was getting crushed by a monster.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Yeah. Yeah, and I heard it back years ago. I think not even maybe a year ago. I was watching one of the cables, and they said Voltron. I went, oh, okay, great. That'd be fun to see what I did then. And hearing myself do this little girl's voice was marginally embarrassing.
Well, I could imagine that might be that way, come across a little embarrassing for you, but that makes sense.
Especially with my daughter sitting next to me. Saying, was that you, Dad? I went, yeah. She goes, oh boy. I said, yeah. It put you through college, so shut up. And I recently did a Voltron, the new Voltron.
That's awesome. What role did you get to play in that?
I'm not at liberty to say because the show obviously hasn't been animated yet.
Oh, a brand new one. Okay.
Yeah, the brand new one. And,
oh, wow.
Brought me in to do a guest spot, so I got to meet the young fellow who's playing Lance.
Oh, that must have been really special.
So we did a selfie, which I'll probably release eventually, both of us. He and I just looking at the camera going, well, this is so interesting. So many years later. What is that, 45 years later or something?
Yeah, roughly, yeah.
Yeah.
That's very fascinating. I didn't realize that is it the new one that's coming out on Netflix, or is it one that's newer than even that?
I don't know. I think it's the new one coming out on Netflix.
Okay.
And somebody else, there's a lovely actor who's from, I think, Australia, who's playing Corin, which is another character I played.
Okay.
So between Sven and Lance and Corin, I managed to capture 3 characters on that show. Wow. They had asked me to appear at certain events and stuff, but I just didn't have the time. I was so busy working. So.
Absolutely, I understand. When you stay busy as an actor, it's definitely a good thing, though. Make sure that you're keeping that cash flow coming in and finances in for you to make your life the best you can. So. Well, speaking of Peter Cullen, Michael, I know you also got to work on Transformers as, several characters on that show, especially Prowl. And you played Scrapper and Sideswipe and Swoop, who was one of the Dinobots, which I love the Dinobots. And what was it like working with that cast of people? Were they some of the same people, or were they different? Did you and Peter Cullen get to work together on that show as well, or?
Yeah, that we did. Pete, Frank Welker, we all worked together in one giant room, and Wally Burr at the other end of on the other side of the glass, and giving us direction. Yeah, we most of us all knew each other, and that was during we worked for 8 hours straight. It was an 8-hour period, and it was not a huge room. It was a fairly small room. So eventually you'd see people lying on the floor, and Wally's saying, okay, where are you? Oh, wait a minute, and just jump up and get to the mic. Okay, I'm sorry, I was dozing off or whatever. It was really kind of fun, and then it was warm in there, and at one point I said, Wally, I'm growing mushrooms on my chest. Can we take a break here? Can I get outside where there's some air? So, yeah, it was interesting. And we did, 80 of them or something, I think, something like that.
Yeah, quite a few, definitely. And you played a lot of characters. You got to really kind of diversify yourself in those roles, which was really awesome to see.
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, he would just throw a role at you and say, okay, Mike, what have you got today, Mike? I said, well, I got Prowl and Swoop. Okay, you got a 3rd one available? I say, okay, I want you to do this guy. And okay, and sometimes that character would follow through. In the series, or sometimes it would just be an ancillary character just for that particular episode. It all depended, but you did it. Just jumped into it, and you say, okay, wait a minute, oh, I got these characters. This one's from the South, and this one's English, and this one's Cockney, but this one's straight British, and this one's a high voice, this one's a deeper voice. Okay, fine. I think I got something, Wally. Let's go. We'd all do that.
Well, that's awesome. That you were able to come in and some days just kind of have something new thrown at you that you weren't expecting and kind of diversify it, change it up, and make it exciting for you.
Yeah, well, I teach voice animation to a lot of students, and I tell them you have to be prepared. You can't just walk and say, well, I can do this, but you have to know a lot more than what you can do, and you got to continue to work at it, to continue to come up with characters, because you never know what you're going to be asked to do.
Absolutely. Just to be diversified in your preparation so that you can be ready for whatever comes your way.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What was it like working with Wally Burr? I know that I heard he was a tank commander in the military and that he kind of ran the sessions kind of very strictly and kind of, on time and just keeping everything punctual and flowing.
Oh, yeah, but he had a good sense of humor. I mean, he still had a good sense of humor. He still got the joke when we played around, but he had to literally rustle us. It was kind of like herding mice. He really worked at it, and sometimes he would give a line reading, and then there would be this silence, and he'd go, "What's going on?" We'd go, "Line reading, Wally. I don't know. I don't think we want to do that." And he'd go, "Okay, fine. Just do what you need to do, but just give it more energy, or do what you did and shout, or whatever it is." And we were doing Inhumanoids for Wally, and Susan Silo, who's a lovely actress, has a certain quality to her voice, and she played one of the characters. I think she played my sister, Blackthorn's sister, and. At one point, he said, "Could you make it stronger, Sue?" And then again, he said, "Sue, could you really pound it out?" And then when he said, "Sue," I said, "Wally, stop." Wally, she's about 4 seconds from leaving a lung on the window. "It's a girl, Wally. You're talking to a girl." And he went, "Oh, yeah. Oh, gee, I'm sorry, Sue. Yeah. Oh, my God. Yeah. No, that was good. That was good. We'll buy that. That was good." Because he literally had her going, I said, "This is a girl. This is not Peter Cullen." He was just so intent on getting he heard it a certain way, and if it wasn't that way, that wasn't what he was going to buy. So you just do what the director says.
So he was definitely a man who knew what he wanted.
Oh yeah, he knew what he wanted, absolutely, and he was also an actor, so he kind of had that in his head.
Absolutely. Well, was there much of a break between doing Transformers, the TV show, and then coming back to do the movie 2 years later? Or were you guys still doing all the animation for Transformers?
I think there was a break. I don't recall. I think there was a break before we came back and did that. Yeah, I think it was a decent break. Because it was a success. They had to first find out if the show was successful. And then, of course, after that, yeah, sure.
Yeah. And then it kind of picked back up and everything after the movie, I believe.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, you've played some amazing roles from some of the Generation 1 shows, but I know you also got to be a part of the Smurfs, I believe, when it first came out, and you've played several different characters on that. What was it like playing with all of those characters as a Smurf?
That was great fun. That was because you really could play. It was really a lot of comedy involved, so you could truly play. And Gordon Hunt directed most of the Smurfs. There might have been a couple of other directors. I think maybe a couple of other directors. I'm not sure that directed the Smurfs, but I think Gordon did pretty much all of them. And working with some very, very talented people and playing. Talk about playing. If they ever released any of the hidden tapes of us working and the things we said while they recorded it prior to what you saw, I think you'd have a whole different show.
It'd be like before the Smurfs.
It'd have to be on Adult Swim.
Wow. Well, I've heard some stories from G.I. Joe too. I was talking with Charlie Adler the other day, and he said you guys cut up and had some really good times on that show.
Oh yeah, we did. We really cut up a lot, and we played a lot, and we did silly stuff, and sometimes Wally would go, "Okay, come on, guys, let's we don't have." I said, "We got a lot of time, but we got 8 hours, Wally. We got 8 hours. It's okay. We're good."
One of my favorite shows from growing up was the different versions they did of Super Friends. They had a multitude of different shows that came out with different names, but it was always generally the same characters from Super Friends. And I know you were the actual first voice of Zan, the Wonder Twin brother. Right. And that's amazing. I mean, only recently has an actor played that role, and you've played it for like the last 30, 40 years before anyone else even voiced it. That's amazing.
What's so funny is, they think because you've reached a certain age that your voice has changed that radically. And it's a possibility, but what they have to do is they should call and find out. And if somebody said to me, "Wonder Twin powers, form of," I know that can do that voice. So you can call me and I'll do that. But if you want a younger cast, I certainly get it. And then when I was doing G.I. Joe, playing Duke, recently, I don't know, did you get to see Community, the on-camera?
I did, yeah. Yeah.
They had called me on that, and they said, they called the agent, they said, "Is Michael Bell, does he still sound like Duke?" And they said, "We'll call him." So they called me and they said, "Hi, can I speak to Michael Bell?" Because I knew they were calling me. I said, "Yeah, this is Michael Bell. What is it?" he said, Michael Beller did the voice of Duke?
I said, yeah, what do you want?
And there was a silence. I said, okay, yeah, it's me. What is it, guys? You think I don't sound the way I did? And I went, Yo, Joe! And he went, okay, part's yours. You got it.
Wow, that was fun, Michael. I bet you had a good time playing with him like that.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah, I do that all the time. Yeah.
That is hilarious. And I can hear a lot of Duke in your voice right now. I mean, you know, time does change things a little bit, but you have a very prominent Duke still coming through, and I love it. It's fascinating to be able to talk with you because of growing up with that show, especially the G.I. Joe movie. I mean, that was just amazing animation for its time, and the music and just the cast of people you worked with. I mean, it stands the test of time, that's for sure.
Yeah, it does. I've been to a couple of the showings, get invited to a couple of showings of G.I. Joe and Transformers, and it does. It's I see now what it is, the attraction was, because I didn't then, because I wasn't watching any of the shows. I was too busy working to go to these things, to see them. It was just work. It was fun, it was work, and then I moved on to the next thing. So you kept waiting for you didn't lounge on your last job. You just can't.
Yeah.
That business, you got to move ahead. If you're an on-camera actor, you only have a certain amount of shows you can do, and if you're a film actor, you maybe do 4 movies, 5 movies a year, maybe 6 if you're lucky, because it takes a year for the film to come out. So you see whether that's going to propel you into the next film, especially if you're not a very famous person. But when you're doing voiceover, you're jumping from show to show. I mean, I just recently did Rescue Bots, and thankfully got a number of those to do, which was really great before they canceled it. And you just go from show to show. You don't have the time to watch the shows for the most part.
You just have to keep staying busy and moving on to the next project.
That's exactly the same thing with video games. I'm doing World of Warcraft now, and Hearthstone and Heroes of the Storm, and you just thankfully just do it and then wait for that next one to come along. But that doesn't mean you run out and buy the game and start playing it. That's for everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. You just don't have the time, unfortunately.
No, that time I usually nap.
Well, when you worked on G.I. Joe, Michael, what was it like working with Chris Latta as Cobra Commander?
Well, Chris is one of those people that if you were walking in a dense neighborhood and you needed to know that there was someone that could yell for help, that would be Chris. He had a voice that was so strong and so piercing. He could, short of an opera singer, I imagine that he could make plastic shake.
Wow.
He had that really high pitch. I think Charlie is able to manage some of it. I'm not sure he achieves it all the way, but he has that sound, that screechy, creepy sound. And Chris was a stand-up comic, so during the evenings he would do stand-up at the clubs.
I did not know that he did the stand-up comedy, but I did know he played both Starscream and Cobra Commander, and those voices were just super iconic from that era. So
he was, and he was a very aggressive performer. He really worked hard performing, and to the point where he would sweat profusely. And we all do to some degree, but he really sweat. So I made it my business not to stand next to him, because when he turned around, you usually got drenched.
Wow. Well, at least everybody's putting in their best when they're sweating doing voiceover.
You sure do. You really, people think, oh, well, it's just a voice. Nah, it's very physical, very physical.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us, Michael. That's definitely an aspect I had never heard of before. Well, Michael, I know you got to be on the show Darkwing Duck, which is another favorite of mine, and I know a lot of people love that show, and you got to play Quackerjack, the Jester. And what was it like working with Jim Cummings and Katie Lee and that gang of people there?
Well, I know Katie well, I know Jim well, what happens is you thankfully, Jenny McSwain, who's a lovely director of animation, lets you play. And that's really helpful. And she'd say, pick something for Quackerjack, and I would work on something, and then I forgot who played. There was another character in there who chose a voice, and this other actor chose a Kirk Douglas type of voice, which was over here. And that was what I was going to do for Crackerjack. I thought, oh, great, he took that one. So where do I go? And I thought, oh, I just okay. I'll pick someone from the early movies, and chose that, and that was great fun. And Jim's consummate performer, and Katie, and all these people. They're so good. You're so comfortable because you don't worry that they're not fulfilling. They know their stuff, and that's really always a pleasure.
Absolutely, Michael. Well, Katie was actually my very first guest on the show, and she is a sweetheart. So
she's lovely. I'm going to be seeing her this weekend in Long Beach. We're going to the Long Beach Comic-Con.
Oh, wonderful. Tell her hey for me.
Absolutely, will do.
Along with all of the different roles that we've discussed so far, you've played a lot of iconic roles such as Lex Luthor, the Riddler, Dr. Octopus, Ezekiel Rage, who was from The Real Adventures of Johnny Quest. And then you've also played some good guys, Cyclops from X-Men, Gleek the Monkey, which was part of the Wonder Twins crew. And then, of course, we talked about Zan a little bit. And just naming a few of those characters, do you prefer playing the villains or the heroes when it comes to playing a role?
Well, the thing about villains is villains are guest spots as a rule. Often guest spots. They're not in every single show. The hero's in every single show. So from a financial standpoint, the hero is great because the hero you're going to see you're going to be working every single show.
Yeah.
But the villain is probably more fun to play, I would suspect. You really get to eat the scenery. Or if you have a director that says, okay, that's a little bit over the top, bring it back, a little too operatic, that's fine too. But I think probably most of us, I think you ask any actor, most of them would prefer to play villains.
What kind of advice would you give to somebody who's looking at maybe pursuing a voiceover career?
Well, I say study acting. You really should study. You really should know your craft because it's not just your voice. Your voice is just, we all have voices. If you've got yourself really what you consider a great voice, it's like having a Stradivarius, and if you keep it in the closet, no one's listening. No one's going to hear it. If you don't know how to play it, what good is that? There's no value to it. So we all have voices. It doesn't mean much. It's what you do with it, what you make of it, and it's acting is behind the whole thing. The bottom line is acting. Yeah, you have to change characters. Yeah, you got to come up with a character. I tell people to listen, plagiarize, don't shade your eyes. That's why God made your eyes, so plagiarize. If you hear something you like, go ahead and do it. Just listen to Jerry Springer. There's some wonderful characters in Jerry Springer. There's some great characters on KCRW. There's some not as many movie characters today as there were, but on the Turner Channel, yeah, there's some wonderful character actors that we used. I'd used Eugene Paulette for the voice of Grouchy.
Oh, okay.
Did you do Grouchy? I said, okay, now what would Grouchy sound like? I thought of Eugene Paulette, who's just this wonderful, short, rotund actor that he was under contract to the studios.
And he had a voice like this. You'll never marry my daughter, so get out.
And I thought, okay, that's what I'm going to use. I'll do that. Wound up getting it. And then for Lazy, I was raised in Brooklyn, and one of the girls in Brooklyn married a guy who sounded like this. This is what he sounded like. And when I go back to Brooklyn to visit them, she'd say, she'd call him in. She says, Stanley, Mike's here. You go, oh, Mike, how you doing? Good to see you. I said, and I'm going to go take a rest right now because I'm really... And I said, okay, I'm going to use him for Lazy.
Wow.
So use what's around you, your aunt, I think I did something, I forgot the name of it, something, I can't think of the character's name, but the character was a ranger, and the way the drawing was, he was so finicky, and such a finicky character, so I used my Aunt Pauline, who talked like this. So I said, so what are you doing over here? You don't belong over here. Get out of the park. And they bought it.
Wow. That's amazing that you're able to just take those things from life and help those to create the characters that you're seeking a voice for. So
that's pretty much what we all do. We all pretty much do that, unless it's us, unless it's our voice, unless, it's Duke or the character from Speed Buggy or whatever it is, which is just your nice vanilla character. But for the most part, you really have to invest. You got to invest in dialects. And you should really know your craft. I teach now, as I told you. In fact, if anybody's interested, they go to michaelbellvoices.com, they can see and hit on classes, they'll get an idea of what I've done in teaching. And I've put together a video, a DVD and a video that they can either download or buy. It's not expensive at all. And it's a class. It watches me teach a class and what the students do and what's wrong and how to amend it and how to work with it and how to train your voice. To me, it's a great learning tool. It's probably better than anything else you're going to find. So if they go to, again, michaelbellvoices.com or belltritel, TRITEL-VO.com, they'll get an idea of what it is I've learned all those years in imparting to people that want to learn to do VO. But it's very important that they take acting lessons. It's important they join an improv group and learn to develop characters. That's the bottom line for me.
Absolutely, Michael. Well, thank you for sharing that way to reach out to you for the voiceover class. I was actually going to ask that myself, so thank you for sharing that with us today. Well, Michael, what was your favorite cartoon character growing up, or did you have one?
I probably go back to the old days when Mel Blanc, rest his soul, was doing his stuff, because, that was my period. And there was, Bugs Bunny, Sylvester, and all these wonderful characters. I'm not sure I picked a particular character in terms of a cartoon voice. I don't think I was thinking like that. I was thinking on camera. I was thinking I want to be an actor in Hollywood. If you couldn't find me, I was in a movie theater somewhere in front of the big screen, watching the heroes and heroines, etc. People that I grew up with, movie stars that I grew up with. I really wasn't as connected to animation. I did love, and I don't think anybody even remembers them. I'm trying to remember myself. They were two blackbirds, and they were wonderful characters, very, very funny characters. And I can't remember who the voices were or who the creator was, but they were two blackbirds, and they were very funny, very hip blackbirds, and those were really great. They were very hip. It was very cogent stuff. But I think Mel Blanc, was the king, and certainly enjoyed listening to him all those years, and then eventually working with him, which was even more fun.
And I believe when you first worked with him, was that The Good, the Bad, and the Huckleberry Hound, or was that something else?
I think it may have been Speed Buggy, but I'm not positive. I did some commercials with him. Okay. His son, Noel Blanc, is a lovely director. Noel is a great director, and I was sitting in and watching a session. And then finally, eventually, this is a friend of mine who brought me in, and she said, Mike does voices. Oh, come on, let's see what you can do. And it's very loose. And I went in and read something with Mel as a young guy in East India or something, and he was selling something as an East Indian selling rugs. And he'd say, Dad, I need the East Indian sound. And Mel wasn't doing it. He said, Dad, it has to be East Indian. And Mel wasn't doing it. He said, Mike, can you do East Indian? And I went, yeah. And he went, well, would you do, Dad, can Michael do the East Indian and you ask him the questions? He said, oh, okay. And I went, oh my God. Oh my God, I just beat out Mel Blanc on a voice. I can't believe this. Of course, that wasn't what it was, but it felt that way. And I wound up doing this character, and he was so gracious. Oh, good, that's good, boy chick. That was good, I like that. I said, great, thank you. I mean, you don't see that in on camera. You're not going to see an on-camera actor say, yes, let him do it. It ain't going to happen.
Wow, that's very gracious of him. And I'm sure that was just a pinnacle in your life. That's amazing.
It was sensational. Of course, then we did Speed Buggy together, which was just another story entirely. But when and I guested, I think, on Captain Caveman and stuff like that. He was really something. He was really, and he was a wonderful actor. Above all, to make my point, he was a wonderful actor. Beyond the voices, he was a wonderful actor.
Absolutely, Michael. Well, thank you for sharing that story with us about Mel, because he's definitely someone I look up to, but, the only way I get to know him is through people who've had those experiences, so I really do appreciate you sharing about your experiences with him.
And he's never won an Academy Award.
Wow, really?
I have pushed, I'm a member of the Screen Actors Guild Board, and I've pushed, and I've given him an award. I know it's long past the time, but give him an award. And I contacted Noel, and I've told Noel, and he said, thank you, Mike. And I said, and I just can't get the board to move in that direction. I said, the man he's an institution. He created the business, literally, and he's never won post-mortem an Academy Award, ever.
Wow. I definitely think he deserves it. I really do.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, I have one final question for you today, Michael, and it is, what is the legacy that you want to leave behind?
Oh my God, you mean in terms of VO? Geez, I don't know. That's way too lofty for me. I think it's already done. I think whatever it is I've done, whatever has already been recorded, I don't know, maybe personal legacies. I'm a big animal activist. I've got a beautiful daughter who's a marvelous actress. That's part of my legacy, I guess.
Absolutely it is.
I can't think of much of anything else. I'd like people to think that I was a pain in the ass, but a good one. That I was loyal, and that I believed in my craft. I believe what we do is not an accident. I believe what we do as actors, voice actors or actors, is not an accident. I think we're destined to do it. This is not something that happens automatically. You don't just trip over it. So that's pretty much it. But as far as legacy, that's such a big word.
Yes, sir. Well, Michael, thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you.
Well, thanks for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
Hey, you're very welcome.
Everybody know, listen, guys, I'm going to be in Palm Beach September 24th, 25th, and 26th for the Palm Beach, Florida Con. And I will be in Australia October 15th and 16th for Australia Movie and Comic-Con. And then Chicago TF-Con October 21st and 23rd. And then Kamikaze Con October 28th and 30th. And then Rhode Island Comic-Con November 11th, 12th, and 13th. And after that, I'm going to nap. And everybody stay tuned and watch Star Wars Rebels and see if you can find my voice, the new Star Wars Rebels.
Oh, most fantastic. Thank you for sharing that with us, Michael. Well, Michael, it has been an absolute pleasure and an honor having you on the show today, sir. Thank you so much for giving us some of your valuable time. Would you please just give us a closeout as Duke from G.I. Joe?
This is Michael Bell on Who Did That Voice? And remember, Yo Joe!
Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining us for this midweek special episode with Michael Bell. I hope you really enjoyed it. If you did, please let me know on our website at www.whodidthatvoice.co and go to the Contact Me page. I'd love to hear from you. Please check out our website for pictures and more of our special guests on the show. Have a great day, and we'll see you this Friday. Well, everyone, that's all the time we have for this episode. Join us this Friday for Johnny Heller, the audiobook narrator who has done over 600 books. You won't want to miss this interview. Hey, are you ready to win some awesome prizes? All you have to do is like our Facebook page or follow us on Twitter for your chance to be instantly and automatically entered for your chance to win.
Thank you for joining us today. We'll see you next time for more discoveries on Who Did That Voice.